Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Chandan Mahajan, who is the co-founder and chief product officer at Dotkonnekt, which is an experiential commerce platform which helps D2C brands to grow organically. Hi Chandan, welcome to ELI.
Hey Priya, good to be talking to you today.
I would like to start with your introduction. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Sure. So again, my name is Chandan. I live in New Jersey currently, but originally I'm from India, from a town called Chamba in Himachal Pradesh. I was born and brought up there, did my education all over India between Chandigarh and Delhi, and then started my career in media, working in Delhi and Hyderabad before I moved to the US 17 years ago.
Okay. Tell us a bit about Dotkonnekt, what it is about, what is the venture and what is the product?
Sure. So Dotkonnekt, came to life in the middle of the pandemic in 2020. What Dotkonnekt is, we call it a growth ecosystem built for consumer brands, and we have started on this journey with a experiential commerce platform, which is purpose built for consumer brands, right? The CPG companies, consumer brands, and all the digital native companies. Because what we realized was, over the years, while the commerce systems have seen evolution, but most of them were either built for very small enterprises or SMB segment, or they were built for the large retailers or large corporates. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a huge uptick in digital commerce, which has also created an opportunity for a lot of new brands to come in, right? Which traditionally don't use the retail or the marketplace route. And we've seen a lot of challenges for these brands to grow because they don't have the right kind of technology stack which was built for their business model, right? So all of them have been struggling using platforms that were built for a completely different segment, and they've been trying to force fit their business model into it. So what we realized was that with how things are evolving, these brands deserve better, and that's how we got to thinking about creating something meaningful for them.
Speaking of the platform, can you help us understand what are the different modules inside the platform, or in other words, from customers' point of view, what a typical D2C brand can do on your platform?
Sure. See, so it's important to first understand how brands have been trying to grow so far, what is changing, and how we are trying to solve this problem in a very different and a unique way. So if you see so far, for most of the digital brands, a typical model of growth has been to acquire a more like a very black, kind of a boxed commerce platform. It could be a Shopify, it could be some of these kind of platforms, right? Which are very easy to adopt, don't require a lot of significant technical capability.
Right.
Start your business and start to grow your business on them. And then brands would typically use a lot of performance marketing to grow their business. Right. Now, with privacy laws becoming more stringent, with the competition becoming higher, for the digital ad dollars, and you see, right, a lot of retailers and ad tech companies are becoming more of advertisers, right, online. So with that, what has happened is the competition for brands has grown up, which also means that you need to put more efforts and more dollars to get the eyeball of that viewer. And second is the performance marketing, is losing its effectiveness because of privacy, because of third-party cookies going away. Right. So that has started to become a big challenge for brands. So and so far in the old model, what brands were really doing were they were trying to just on the back of a commerce platform and performance marketing, they were growing their business. And which we all know that when you are trying to compete with a large scale and efficiency of a large retailer or a large marketplace, it's not easy because a lot of these brands are very small with limited means. They really cannot go head on with larger players. Right. What we realized was for these brands to grow organically, which means not completely depending on growth on performance marketing or just a tech stack, they have to focus more on being great on content and great on community, right? So what we truly believe is that for a brand to win, differentiate, and grow sustainably, it has to be a right balance of content, community, and commerce. Now, while everybody agrees with this statement, the fun thing is, if you see, Priya, from a technology perspective, it is super hard to implement and super hard to integrate, right? Because the way the world works right now is you have a lot of commerce platforms, you have a lot of content platforms, and you have a lot of community platforms, right?
Right.
These are different partners, siloed technologies that many brands struggle to bring together to create one unified experience for their customers, right? So that's what we are trying to solve as Dotkonnekt, where when we say we are building an experiential commerce platform, we are basically building a framework that will integrate all of these siloed products through one convergent experience, and it'll be a composable UX, which means that in the concept of headless commerce, it basically will give brands the ability to craft their own unique identity and a unique experience, and give them the flexibility to continue enhancing the tech stack as they grow through their journey.
Okay. How does it work? Can you tell us? Because you rightly mentioned that content, community, and commerce, it's very hard to integrate their silo technologies. I think Facebook and other social media networks, they have tried to mix content with community to some level, but not commerce. Can you tell us how are you approaching this?
Yeah, see, if you see right now, and you're right, where there have been some attempts, but problem is the experience end of the day starts to get broken. There are a couple of good examples. So if you see, important to understand how this problem is being solved right now. So there are quite a few good examples out there with D2C brands who've been able to a great extent, been able to solve this problem. But the only way this problem can be currently solved is through a lot of custom development, right? So a lot of these brands have had to build a fairly significant size of technology team in-house, or they had to go out and find the right kind of SI partners out there. In both the cases, you're talking about a lot of money to be spent, right? Because obviously it requires a significant team, to be created, whether in-house or through a partner. It obviously requires a significant budget and, of course, the time to market, right? And with the kind of tech talent shortage that we are seeing across the world right now, that is becoming a big challenge for a lot of companies. So what we're trying to do is basically productizing that experience or that capability, which otherwise can only come, from a system integrator effort or from a very customization right now, because it does not really exist in a framework that can enable it for anyone, right? The problem in this case would be, just to give you an example, is if you were today a brand and you are trying to move your positioning from being a very commerce-led brand to a more of a content-driven brand, which means that if somebody were to come to your website today, you're not just trying to throw offers at them and just highlight your hero product and expecting they will sell or they will just subscribe, right? Now, some customers may, there are fewer of them, right, when they already know what they want to buy. But some people who are just in their discovery phase of their journey, they don't want to get overwhelmed with too many products and just offers. And unfortunately, what has happened is, with the way commerce platforms have been built most of the time, they have been built to just take a catalog online and implement promotions, implement offers and all that, right? And unfortunately, a lot of the D2C brands have also used the same template coming from these commerce platforms, right? Where most of the brands feel that, okay, if I create my .com site, a very fancy looking website, put my catalog there, give them a 10% offer, a free shipping and all that, and then do a lot of Facebook ads, that should pretty much help me acquire customers. Now, of course, you can drop your prices and acquire customers, but the big question is, will you be able to retain those customers? And how can you continue driving this behavior every time? Because you're it's a leaking bucket at the end of the day, right? You're losing a lot of margin. So the right way that we believe to do this is, if you can make content the hero of your story rather than just a commerce or pricing, right? Which means that understand what the user is looking for. So rather than trying to start by selling them something, start by engaging and understanding their need and give them the right kind of insights, right? Because we all have seen it in our examples where if you start to get the right kind of insights and advice, you tend to attach yourself to that particular person or entity or brand more than somebody who's just trying to use your time to sell you something.
Right. Would be curious to know, where do we stand as a venture in terms of are we product market fit yet? what is the kind of traction we have been seeing, and any numbers you would like to share?
Sure. So we're currently in a stealth mode, Priya. Although the company started 1.5 years back, we are a revenue generating, profitable from day one company. We have a team of around 20 people now. See, what we've done is, and I think it'll be important for your viewers also to understand.
Yeah.
Both me and my co-founder and friend Dheeraj, we both started the company. We started this company after 20 years in this industry. So between both of us, we have 2 decades each of experience in the global retail, e-commerce, and technology industry, right? So we have worked in North America, Europe, Middle East, Asia Pacific, and the idea was that we had a couple of thoughts. That one, we had acquired a lot of knowledge and insights and experience, working with large tech services companies, management and strategy firms, as well as business operations or business process, consulting companies. So the idea was, how could we, gather the experience and the insights that we have received and put them to better use. And of course, and also while fulfilling our own dream of becoming entrepreneurs, and end of the day helping the community, right? So that's how the idea came was. So while we had a lot of experience, we did not just wear the hat saying that okay, we know everything, right? Because it's all about constant learning. So we have spent a good amount of the last 12 to 14 months understanding the space at a very deep level. The D2C industry, how it has evolved so far, what is changing, and how it will evolve in the future. Like what kind of capabilities brands will need, what kind of challenges they're very likely to come across, that they have to face, and what kind of partnerships would make sense for these brands, right? That will enable them to grow organically and scale, because challenges will come, right? Privacy, technology, automation, consumer behavior changes, every time in this industry, right? So you have to really keep up. So you can't say that you've arrived at a point, right? Because the moment you feel you've arrived, things around you will start to change dramatically, and you have to keep innovating. So we spent a good amount of last 14, 15 months talking to over 100 brands globally. We talked to a lot of tech companies, talked to a lot of partners and a lot of our advisors. And based on that, we were able to come up with a thesis, which we believe is the right kind of platform to enable. So we're building that platform. It will be launched in the next 2 months or so. In terms of traction, can't give you exact numbers right now, unfortunately, but we have a very healthy list of brands that we're working with between North America and Southeast Asia, including India, who will be launching on our platform as well. So overall, very excited about the traction so far. Super stoked about the kind of interest we've seen from the D2C community, both the customers and partners, and the road ahead for us.
Okay. I think in India, D2C is one hot topic in the founders and entrepreneurs community, because a lot of new D2C brands are coming up every day, and they're doing well also. So they're pretty successful ventures, and D2C seems to be a very, very nice thing to start, because there is a high chance of success. So can you tell us why D2C is on a rise as per you? And what are the different trends you have been observing in the D2C market?
Sure. See, the couple of factors that I think are playing, just a perfect storm brewing for D2C industry, right? See, one, as consumers over the years, everybody likes choices, right? But growing up, especially in the consumer goods category, I'm sure you can count on your hand the number of brands you had access to when you were growing up versus in the last couple of years, right? So if you needed a soap, you knew there were just a couple of soaps that you can get, right? Same for chocolates or any other categories, right? Or fashion for that matter. So I think one, from a consumer standpoint globally, it is a great thing to have more options, right? Because one, it is a healthy competition. So it is not just the large consumer good companies or manufacturers or house of brands that sort of have a monopoly over a certain segment, right? So having more challenges in any category is always a good thing for the overall market, right? Because creates healthy competition creates more innovation. Consumers get more choices. Prices can be more competitive. So in general, I think it's good for the environment. So one, we feel it's a step in the right direction. in India in particular, like you rightly pointed out, D2C has gained a lot of momentum in the last 2 to 3 years, right? And of course, for a lot of a lot of it also has to do with the pandemic, right? Because the pandemic forced a lot of the e-commerce adoption on people who were not as internet savvy as before, right? So the Gen Z or the Gen X, the baby boomers, the general segment, right? That was not shopping online is done. Second is, with UPI, with the last mile fulfillment network, becoming much more robust in India and in the developing markets, it just opens up a lot of these brands to a very large disposable income or customer segment which earlier did not have access to these brands, right? You heard me saying that I'm from Himachal, small town called Chamba. That's where I grew up, right? Around 3 years ago, Amazon was not available there. So I remember growing up, the only thing we could possibly look at was if we needed something which was nice. So my father would travel to Delhi and buy something for us, right? That was the only way for us to even get things like comics for that matter, right? Because we just didn't have access to that in our small town. But now today, things have completely changed, right? You could be pretty much, just logging onto any marketplace and get any brand that somebody like you in a tier 1 city across the world would get, right? So I think that is the power of the democratization of commerce. I think, and D2C sits in the middle of it. Of course, there are challenges as well in this community, right? It's not all exciting and fancy because yes, while it is a very lucrative space because of the barriers of entry are very low, but the competition to grow is super high. So I think that's what we always tell founders that while a lot of people get excited to segment, because it just looks very sexy, from looking in, but growing a brand requires a great deal of effort, which brands and founders need to be aware of and need to be prepared for as well.
What are the different challenges that you have faced so far while building and growing this venture?
See, there is one thing that stays constantly in the life of an entrepreneur is challenges, right? And that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of people don't end up, taking the plunge and becoming entrepreneurs, or launch their own brands or become founders. See, while things like revenue, the right kind of customers, the runway, some of those are very natural and very common things, right? The product market fit, all those great terms that we use in this industry. I think truly for me, if you ask me, right, end of the day, it all comes down to, do you have believers in what you're doing, right? And those believers can be your team, the core founding team, or the core set of employees that you'll have. Those believers can be customers, your early customers that will trust you and give you that word of confidence through their business. It could also be investors, right? The early investors that a lot of brands need to, go from 0 to 1. So I think end of the day, while revenue is super important, being profitable is important, and having very sound business principles is important, right? Because you see a lot of examples also where some great or brands launch with big fanfare, huge marketing buzz, but they're cash burning machines, right?
Right.
To a certain extent, and as the markets are evolving the world over, at some point you have to show that this business model is meant to create profit and not just acquire users at the cost of somebody else's money. So I think end of the day, it's it all comes down to, do you have the believers in you, whether it is your team, your customers, or in investors. So I think that would be the biggest challenge that one should be watching out for all the time.
I think one constant challenge for all the founders, especially at the beginning stage, is hiring. How do you hire, and that too, when you are hiring a core team which will stay with you for a very longer term compared to the typical hiring that happens in corporates. So can you tell us how have you gone about hiring the core team for your venture?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the same point I said, right, about believers. Because see, end of the day, when you're starting something new, you have not proven yourself, right? What you have at that point is a vision. You have obviously a lot of commitment and passion to make that vision a reality, and then your ability to convince more people to get on the same bus as you, right? I think this is where the clarity of thought in terms of what you're trying to do and having a very clear vision, right? See, because any startup, I don't see that there'll be a very clear path to get to your vision, right? It'll go through a lot of ups and downs, but having that clarity of where you're going now, how you get there could be very different. The roads to lead to the destination could vary depending on a lot of factors that you cannot control. But as long as you know where you're headed, then getting more people to believe in you, could be a little more easier. So in our case, we've been blessed, given the time we've spent in the industry. We've had great teams between Dheeraj and I that we work with our colleagues, a lot of peers that we work with, and we feel blessed that this 20 odd people that I talked about, this core founding team happens to be those believers, right? Who have from day one, or in fact day zero, they have been completely on board with the vision, with the idea, and they're a very critical part of this bus that we are on right now, and this journey, trying to get to our vision.
As an entrepreneur, you are expected to stay energetic and driven all the time because you have to drive yourself, your venture, and the team. Can you tell us how do you manage to stay consistent and energetic over time, and what happens when you lose your focus or you just feel tired and restless?
That's an interesting question. I don't think I have a magic answer for that, but I'll tell you. See, one is one big change that I saw was when you're doing something that you really believe in. Somehow you'll automatically get a lot of energy and passion and commitment to keep going at it, right? Then you stop counting hours and minutes in terms of how much time you're spending the night versus days and all that, right? Because it doesn't appear like a job anymore, right? It looks like it's a balance of fun and excitement that keeps you going. So while that is true for each entrepreneur because they're very committed and attached to their idea, but again, end of the day, I also feel that you need to balance out, because what you don't want to do is that excitement and passion should not lead to burnout, right? Because when you start to burn out, your team will feel the same thing as well, right? So I think balancing out your commitment, and passion with taking some time off for yourself, and trying to put that time into something else you like other than building your brand is very important. Right now it could be reading, exercise, meditate, sleep, or just watch movies, right? Some people just that's my way of just start chilling out. By the way, just watch some good movies, read up a little bit more, spend time with family, or just do nothing. Sometimes I just do nothing. I think that's important. But having said that, there are times, right, when you're just not feeling in your zone, right? You just feel a little too tired, not in the right mindset to speak. And I think that's where the power of the team comes in, right? So I think that way also, between our core team, we've been very lucky and blessed to have people who understand each other in a way that very easily one can step in when the other person, for whatever reason, cannot be there or cannot be actively involved, whether it's a personal or a health issue and all that, right? So that way we've been able to encounter that nicely so far. Of course, as you scale, this problem is real, and we have to be very mindful of the people, right? Because end of the day, while everyone's committed, everyone also has a life outside of work, right? So we have to be just respectful of that.
What would you say is the meaning of entrepreneurship for you? How would you define the term entrepreneur?
Yeah. So see, when you look at a person who's entrepreneur and a person who's not, right? I mean, if I look at it, see, end of the day, they both are dreamers. They both have some dreams and some ambition and some objectives in their life. I think the one thing that starts to separate an entrepreneur is a person who's able to look beyond the obstacles that may come in achieving the journey, and has the conviction to still set off on that path, right? Because I've talked to a couple of other friends since I took the plunge, right? And the one thing you start to actually see, and I've been amazed, is how many more people are sitting on the fence, and they've not been able to make a decision, right? And again, not trying to generalize, right? Because everyone has a very different, situation, on personal work side, right? So obviously everybody's triggers are very different. But in general, my observation has been there is that fear of the unknown that you just cannot convince yourself to get into, right? Because end of the day, a job for a lot of people means clarity, right? That okay, I'm going to get a paycheck at the end of the month, right? I'm going to get my bonus. I may be promoted after 2-3 months or whatever, right? I can see a career plan in a certain company or in a certain industry. None of that exists in entrepreneurship, right? You have no idea, how will you feed yourself after a month or and all that, right? There are runway issues. There are issues with customers or investors, competition, right? So many people got impacted due to COVID in their businesses, right? So what if another big pandemic happens? What if this wave or this phase of COVID does not end, right? So there are a lot of questions out there. I think so. End of the day, what defines an entrepreneur is someone who understands that look, the world around me can change in many ways that I can control, but I have the resolve, I have the commitment, and I have the clarity that I'll keep at it, right? But again, not as a blind vision. Having clarity is super important, right? You at any point of time, you should know what you're trying to achieve and where you're headed. Like I said earlier, right? The path to get there could be different. You may have to slow down, accelerate at times, depending on so many other factors. But as long as that's clear, I think that defines an entrepreneur for me.
Probably my final question for you. Tell us about the lessons that you have learned throughout your entrepreneurial journey that we can take away and apply to our ventures and possibly our lives as well.
So, see, lessons, right? I've not been a tenured entrepreneur, I would say, but I've been in the industry for 20 plus years as well, right? So, of course, see, one thing is when I was even in the corporate world, by the way, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. So my roots, are from a business family. So I've always looked at anything that I've done, right? Whether it was a corporate assignment in my earlier life or even now, I've always, I've always believed in operating or thinking like an owner, right? Even if I was in a job, right? Because the kind of ownership and conviction it gives you is very different when you look at something as if you own it versus that you're just one small cog in the wheel, from that perspective. So I think that mindset, I think, is very important, right? And this could be probably my advice to anybody out there, right, who's either a founder themselves, running a company, or maybe they're part of a larger corporate and evaluating their options for the future. That see, are you thinking like an owner? Because that can change your mindset about anything, and that can also prepare you very well if you want to become an entrepreneur or if you want to go down on your own, exploring your own journey. I think that's important. See, second thing is, I believe the do things without a lot of intent of what is it, what's in it for me. Whether it is helping people, helping the community. We call it connecting the dots, by the way, no pun intended in our case, right? Where I believe in good karma. If you do right things without always thinking that okay, if I do this, am I getting something back? There is a way for nature to give you back more when you don't expect it. And we personally have seen it coming, right? The kind of support we have received in Dotkonnekt in the last 1.5 years since we announced to the world that we were on our own has been tremendous, right? 3 years ago, I had not thought through that I'll be an entrepreneur, right? A lot of these things, while they have been a lifelong dream, but a lot of it manifested itself in a very interesting way at the beginning of the pandemic when we launched. And since then, it is very, very humbling to see the kind of support we've gotten. And again, much of this support is coming from friends and advisors and well-wishers and partners that at some point we may have helped without a selfish interest, right? So I think if you keep doing the right things, the universe will pay back in its own ways, right? So I think I would say keep connecting the dots. And third thing is, like I said, the team part, right? I think be very, I would say, aware of who is with you in that journey, right? Whether it is your partner, your co-founder, whether it is your core team, or even the early investors or early customers, right? Because I think making those choices are very important, because if you surround yourself with people that will push you to be better every day, I think it will help everyone, especially a young brand, right? So don't have too many people who think like you, or don't have too many people who just look up to you, to figure out what to do next, because then very soon you may find yourself to be lonely, only looking, at yourself to figure out what to do, right? So I think sometimes it can be a very tough choice to have people with you who will question you in a very constructive way. But I think it is for benefit of the entire company and all of you, all of us, to have that kind of a team which is very constructive, but also questioning the status quo all the time.
Well, on this note, I think we have come to end of this interesting discussion. Thanks for your time, Chandan, and best wishes for Dotkonnekt.
No, love connecting with you. And again, the only one thing I'd say is, we believe a lot in giving back, as a team, and personally for me as well. So if there's anybody, listening, who think, we could help in any way, or I could personally help in their journey anyway, I'm on LinkedIn, so they can always reach out.
Thank you, Chandan.
All right. Thank you.